voice of the world. Let it out, flags unfurled. No apologies, wild and free, fighting in the face of society.
Okay, so we're diving into how to become a wizard. And I gotta say, when you sent this over, I wasn't sure what to expect. Are we talking like actual magic spells here?
Well, it's not exactly a Hogwarts textbook.
Because I'm down to learn some spells if you are.
It's more about using this idea of wizardry to explore some really interesting concepts about knowledge, belief, the power of the mind.
Okay, see, now that has me intrigued. What's one of the first wizarding concepts the book throws at you?
Well, it dives right into the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Ah, Dunning-Kruger. For those of us who haven't brushed up on our cognitive biases lately, what's the book's take?
It uses this analogy of a box.
Okay, I like analogies.
So imagine the universe and all its knowledge as this huge box, right? Most people, the book argues, are walking around with a pretty small box. And here's the catch.
They don't even know how small it is.
Exactly. They think their little box contains everything there is to know.
It's like thinking you're an expert on world cuisine because you've tried every item at your local pizza place.
Exactly. So the first step to becoming a wizard is realizing that our box might be smaller than we think.
Which is a humbling realization, to say the least. So how do we even begin to do that? How do we realize our box is small in the first place?
That's where the real journey of self-discovery begins. The book suggests that we all have blind spots, areas where we might be limiting ourselves without even realizing it.
So it's about recognizing those blind spots and being open to expanding that box of knowledge.
Exactly. It's about constantly challenging our assumptions, seeking out new perspectives, and being willing to admit when we're wrong.
Because the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. Which is kind of exciting when you think about it. Okay, so we're starting to see how this book connects to self-improvement, but then it takes this hard left turn into quantum physics.
Yeah, the author dives into some pretty mind-bending territory.
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, he uses the double-slit experiment.
Okay, I'm going to need a refresher on that one.
So basically, imagine you're shining a light through two tiny slits. You'd expect to see two lines of light on the other side, right?
Yeah, that's what I would think.
But here's where it gets weird. Depending on whether someone is observing the light or not, it acts like either a wave or a particle.
Wait, so just the act of looking at it changes how it behaves?
It's pretty wild, right? And that's what the author uses to connect this experiment to the power of our minds.
So is he suggesting that our thoughts can literally change reality?
That's one way to interpret it. It's a pretty mind-blowing concept, and it leads into the next big idea. The book's take on magic.
All right, we've officially entered the realm of the extraordinary. But before we go full-on Harry Potter, we should probably clarify what we mean by magic here. We're not talking about pulling rabbits out of hats, are we?
Not exactly, though the book does have some fun with that imagery. What it's really getting at is the power of belief and intention.
Okay, so are we talking about manifestation here, like the idea that we can just think things into existence?
It's a bit more nuanced than that. The book uses another interesting analogy, a Venn diagram, to illustrate how individual realities intersect.
All right, I'm picturing those overlapping circles from school. How does that relate to magic?
So imagine each person's reality as one of those circles. The areas where they overlap, that's what we generally agree on as real. But what about the parts of the circles that don't overlap?
The parts that are unique to each person.
Exactly. The book suggests that those parts of our realities are still influencing our perceptions and experiences.
So even though we might agree on basic facts, our individual beliefs and experiences are still coloring how we see things.
Precisely. And that leads to the book's exploration of practical magic techniques for shaping those beliefs and expectations.
So less about casting spells and more about understanding how our minds interact with the world around us.
Exactly.
So what are some of these techniques? How do we tap into this magic in our own lives? And how does that connect to the idea of becoming a wizard?
Well, one technique the book explores in detail is the creation and use of sigils.
Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff. Tell us more about these sigils. So sigils, for those of us who haven't encountered that term before, what are we talking about?
They're kind of like magical symbols. But it's not as simple as just drawing a shape and expecting something to happen.
So there's more to it than meets the eye.
Exactly. It's about imbuing a symbol with a specific intention. The book walks you through creating a visual representation of your desire. Then you charge it with your energy and release it into your subconscious.
So less about waving a wand and more about like a mental laser pointer.
Exactly. It's all about harnessing the power of your subconscious mind.
Which I think connects back to that Dunning-Kruger idea, right? If we're limited by what we believe is possible, these techniques are almost like rewiring our brains to expand those limits.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about manifesting material things. The book talks about using sigils for all sorts of things like personal growth, enhancing creativity, even improving relationships.
There's a whole chapter about creating a money spell using sigils. It sounds a little woo-woo.
I know, it does sound a bit like something out of a movie montage. But the book emphasizes that it's not about hocus pocus. It's not about magic in the traditional sense,
So no need to sacrifice a goat under a full moon.
unless that helps you focus your intention.
Okay, so for the skeptics listening in who are thinking, this all sounds a bit too out there for me, what's the takeaway? Can you achieve the same results without, dabbling in what looks like magic?
Absolutely. The book even says that the mechanisms behind these techniques might be more about psychology than anything supernatural. Sigil magic could be a form of self-hypnosis or visualization.
Right, techniques that athletes and artists have been using for years to enhance their performance.
Exactly. It all comes back to focused intention, visualization, and believing in your ability to make things happen.
So it's about taking control of your own narrative.
Exactly. And speaking of taking control, the book goes beyond personal transformation. It challenges us to question the very structures of society.
Yeah, there's that whole section about the matrix and how we need to break free from it. What's that all about?
It's about recognizing where we've been conditioned to think and behave in certain ways. It challenges us to question everything: our education system, our economic systems, even our beliefs about love and relationships.
It's like the book is saying, hey, you've been playing by someone else's rules this whole time.
Exactly. It's a call to examine the beliefs we've inherited and ask ourselves, are they truly serving us? Are they helping us live the lives we want to live?
So, like, give me an example. Where does this matrix show up in our everyday lives?
Well, take consumerism, for example. The book argues that our constant desire for the next gadget, the next fashion trend, it keeps us trapped on this treadmill of consumption that doesn't lead to lasting happiness.
It's interesting you mention consumerism because the book also spends a good amount of time on our relationship with money, and it doesn't exactly paint a pretty picture.
Right. It argues that our obsession with money can actually be a form of enslavement. It keeps us trapped in a system that doesn't truly serve us.
So we're all chasing after the next dollar just to be happy. I mean,
Yeah, it challenges us to really think about what truly brings us happiness.
instead of just buying more stuff.
Exactly. It's not about amassing wealth for its own sake. It's about finding freedom from those external pressures.
And focusing on what really matters.
Right.
And that goes beyond just money, right?
Yeah.
The book also talks about how this matrix influences our ideas about love and relationships.
Yeah, it challenges those fairy tale notions of finding the one. Those expectations that we often get fed by movies and books.
Oh yeah, those happily ever after stories.
Right. And the book argues that those expectations can actually lead to disappointment and unhappiness in our own lives.
Because real life is messier than a fairy tale.
Exactly.
So then what does the book say about finding a fulfilling relationship? Assuming we don't all turn into wizards and just conjure our soulmates.
Well, it emphasizes the importance of mutual respect, open communication, and a shared commitment to growth.
So it's about finding someone who supports us on our own journey.
Exactly. And someone who challenges us to become the best versions of ourselves.
It's funny how this whole section on love ties back to the book's message about self-discovery. Like, you can't really show up for someone else until you've done the work on yourself.
Exactly. And that journey of self-discovery, it often involves confronting our shadows.
You mean those parts of ourselves we don't like to look at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book talks about how important it is to acknowledge and integrate those shadow aspects of ourselves.
Because they're a part of what makes us whole.
Right. It's not about denying or suppressing those parts of ourselves. It's about bringing them into the light of awareness so we can heal and grow.
It's like that saying, what we resist persists.
Exactly. And once we've made peace with our shadows, that's when we can really step into our full potential as human beings.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Knowledge, belief, magic, societal structures, relationships, our own shadow selves. Is there like a common thread that runs through all of this? What's the ultimate takeaway from how to become a wizard?
For me, it all comes back to that idea of taking control of our own reality.
Instead of letting life just happen to us.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the power we have to shape our own experiences and create the lives we want to live.
Even if we don't have any actual magic powers.
Right. It's about tapping into that inner wizard within each of us.
That potential that's waiting to be unleashed.
Exactly. It's about approaching life with a sense of curiosity and wonder and never being afraid to question the status quo.
Because the journey of self-discovery never really ends, does it?
No, it doesn't. And that's what makes it so exciting.
Well said. I think that's the perfect note to end on. For anyone listening who wants to unlock their own inner wizard, be sure to check out How to Become a Wizard. It's a wild ride, but it's definitely worth the journey.
I completely agree.
Falling in the face of society.